Mic check. Yeah. Mic check 1 2. You know how we do. IMHO. Yo. Yeah. The truth is, the youth is the future. Need to show them different, not what we used to. Gotta come together, change for the better. Better cheddar, put you through the shredder, only if you live. Felt the pressure, ancestors get it life for us to make it right, not for giving up the fight. Shining light so bright if we all unite. The time, right time now for new heights. Mrs. Max and your Robinson and Charles Lord. Put the sir on the front, better red door. I just verbalize the truth, then I kick it fluid. Or what they two trying to do, bring it to a unit. Power in this speech, gotta learn before you teach. If each one reach one, better off with be. Tune in, nigga, chain, gotta do it. Mrs. Max and your Robinson and Sir Charles Lewis, y'all. It's in my humble opinion. Yeah, it's in my humble opinion. Shit.
In my humble opinion, Seville 101 Jams, your home for today's and classics, hip-hop and R&B, home of the Rising Ground Morning Show. And today we want to say it's the home of Charlottesville Solidarity. A lot of us have heavy hearts, and so we want to make sure that we continue to be the people station and open up our lines and everything for community to chime in. We're going to have a lot of special guests with us today, a lot of known names, a lot of locally known names, firsthand accounts of what has been going on in our city, what happened this weekend. And so we want to let you all know that you can reach us here at 422-9101, as well as inboxes, IMHO 101 Jams on social media. Heather Danielle Heyer, age 32, from Ruckersville, a paralegal living and working in Charlottesville, was murdered by a 20-year-old white supremacist from the Toledo area while marching in peaceful protest on Water Street Saturday afternoon. The driver was charged with second-degree murder, 3 counts of malicious wounding, and failing to stop at a fatal accident, authorities said. He was photographed earlier in the day holding a shield aligned with the Vanguard America, a hate group that uses the pre-Nazi slogan Blut and Boden, which means blood and soul, an ideology that focuses on ethnicity based on descent, blood of a folk, and territory. The Unite the Right rally was called to protest against plans to remove a statue of a general who had fought for the pro-slavery Confederacy during the U.S. Civil War. Neo-Nazis and factions of the Ku Klux Klan promoted the gathering widely. Later in the day, 2 Virginia state policemen died when their helicopter crashed on the way home after providing support to officers on the ground. In a New York Times op-ed, Michael Eric Dyson writes, and I quote, "The late, great Gore Vidal said that when we live in the United States of amnesia, our fatal forgetfulness flares when white bigots come out of their closets, emboldened by the cover they're given by our president. We cannot pretend that the ugly bigotry unleashed in the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia, this weekend has nothing to do with the election of Donald Trump," end quote.
Thank you, family. It's your friend on the radio, Maxilia Robinson. And of course, I'm joined by Charles Lewis. Razor's in the studio. Aaron Simmons is here. And our first guest, Tanesha Hudson, is also joining me. And of course, we're coming to you live after pandemonium in the streets, uprising in the streets, and 3 people have lost their lives. Too much hate and not enough love in this world. And the hope is that, in my humble opinion, can bring you some perspective on what's happening in Charlottesville and in America, and begin the healing process or the steps of how to proceed and how to move forward after something as tragic as this. So thank you for joining us. Let us not forget that there are 3 people who are not. Okay? And that's right. And I'd like to, for the people that went out yesterday to combat the evil that still exists, that stood on behalf of me and those that look like me, people in this room, I want to tell you thank you, because you didn't have to be there, but you stood in place of me. Some people lost their lives because of that. So thank you to all of my counterparts. Thank you to the black people that went out and stood for a cause and a reason and a fight, okay? It's unfortunate that it ended in violence, but I do want to let you know that I recognize what you did and I appreciate what you did. Razor, Aaron, anything?
Aaron, you want to take this first?
Real quickly, just to...
I agree with Maxilia. Huge levels of self-respect for all the black people that were out there. I think that one thing that was on my mind driving up here was a lot of those slogans and a lot of those chants, unfortunately, that people heard from these racist / white supremacists were some of the similar things that Mr. Dylan Storm Roof was saying before he decided to execute non-white people in a church in Charleston. So my only thing is take this extremely seriously if you haven't already done so. We should already know the system that we're living in, and now it's up to us to put on our brain computers and our hats and figure out different ways that we can combat this system. And like I said, huge levels of black self-respect go out to all the people out there that have given their lives, but also are giving their lives today to protect themselves and their families as well.
On my side of things, throughout the show, I'm going to be dropping little jewels, because the way you get through this is to continue going. You do not let this paralyze you. And somebody has to start. Doesn't mean that you're the leader. Doesn't mean that people are going to follow you, but somebody has to start the process. So the best way that I know how to is to give the information that I believe will help all of us.
Okay, thank you. Tanesha, we're going to come back and have a conversation with you, but tell the family hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. I mean, right now, I really don't know what to say, but hello. We'll just let it come out as we discuss it on the show.
Fair enough. Difficult time. We'll be right back. Listen, thank you for tuning in. Tell somebody In My Humble Opinion is on. You're listening to In My Humble Opinion on 101 Jams, classics in today's hip-hop and R&B. We'll be right back.
Tell me how to escape a trap that you wrapped in. I'm black on the outside, so this package, it keeps me packed in. Stop acting like the history from back then isn't happening still to black men. Harassed and we blast and kill our brothers? I am not him. I'm just living the victim of systems in poor conditions, from education to corner markets poisoning children. Economics, incarceration, imprisonment of a nation for non-violent offenses while rapists can get probation. Now tell me what sense that's making. Only change was enslavement, went from fields to prison yards. Free labor is still the basics, impacting the bottom line and they profit while we stay dying as family fractures because fathers and brothers are stuck behind bars. We need to raise them, my standards have been forsaken. I'm down to rebuild the nation. I'm starting with just one statement. I won't rest until the best of my people become the norm. Too many die for us not to reform. So come on, Black America. See, this song is called Color Lines, and the reason I say that because there are lines of color in our society, and sometimes we pretend like they don't exist. At the end of the day, why are we separating ourselves by race, creed, or color? We're one people, we're under one God, and we're trying to do one thing, which is love one another. You know what I mean? So this is what this song is about. I know some Christians will confuse my vision, claim I'm playing cards with my race, but I will forgive them. Cause it's not a game, and I'm not speaking fiction. I've been thrown on the ground by police when I was innocent, and had guns in my face when I was quiet, not resistant, and been asked if I belong here in a house that I had built. So if you can't relate to the pain, just be quiet while I vent some. Not saying that it's all bad, but hate groups still exist. So why am I questioned by these bloggers and my Christian kinfolk, acting like skinheads in the Klan aren't dangerous people who don't protest and profess to want me dead before the end? So as long as they organizing, I'm a ride against the evil and pray for unification, cause Satan divides the nations by race, creed, and color. He wins if we don't face it. So face it, we have a country divided by color lines. Just look at your Sunday service and prove to me that I'm lying. Come on.
It's about that white power. They screaming with no words. It's about that white powder. They put that on our curves. If we say black power, our intentions are absurd. We covered in black powder when that coffin's in the dirt. I could be that stereotype that you think of me. Wrap a black bandana around my face, I'm facing robberies. About to face a diamond cause I'm black as crack up in my jeans. Clapping at these cats. In contrast to that, this is me. I'm already a statistic cause I grew up with my mother. They gon' make me a statistic trying to put me under covers. You gon' make me a statistic cause you know that Jesus love us, but because we different, seem like you don't reach out to the brothers. Never knew equality since slavery in the South. Even Martin Luther King got popped for what he talked about. 20 years for warning shots if someone gets up in my house. New perception is a mother fletching fist up in your mouth. You don't try to understand this. We can't be on one accord. Y'all ain't dying daily like when Christians really love the Lord. You don't have to fear for your life when the cops is at your door. Hit the floor, empty your pockets fresh out the corner store. They say all lives matter but the blacks die first. Don't subtract my verse, your vision ain't that diverse. Cause see, if you got a black kid sitting next to a white kid mugging a white cop, who get the black eye first? Tubman in my pocket says he hits the black guy first. They gon' try to shut me up, let me get my black tie first. And if these my last hours, don't relax on my verse. On faith, throw black flowers out the back of my hearse. Seem like everybody mad at us. Got the police harassing us. Why your pastor be asking us why we talk about half this stuff? Cause it's true. Homie, don't put the shoe on if it wasn't you. But if it fits, tie up a knot, then grab the other shoe and kick rocks until you flip-flop, then make a substitute. Spit 6 shots at hate, then show them what lover do. Love is blind. 66 clips go in this gun of mine. Busting at everything trying to take you to the other side. Love is kind. Loving on my brother till I'm done with mine. Whether black, white, Hispanic, or any other kind. Love is like a drug. You hate and sniff on these color lines. I say love is love. Can you love me like you colorblind?
Tell me how to escape a trap that you wrapped in. Black on the outside, so this package it keeps me packed in. Stop acting like the history from back then isn't happening still to black men. Harassing though we blast and kill our brothers, I am not him. I'm just living a victim of systems and poor conditions. From education to corner markets poisoning children. Economics, incarceration, imprisonment of a nation for non-violent offenses while rapists can get probation. Now tell me what sense that's making. Only change was enslavement. Went from fields to prison yards. Free labor is still the basics. Impacting the bottom line and they profit while we stay dying as families fracture because fathers and brothers stuck behind walls. We need to raise them. My standards have been forsaken. I'm down to rebuild the nation. I'm starting with just one statement. I won't rest until the best of my people becomes the norm. Too many die for us not to reform. Come on.
I'm really getting tired of hearing people say that they don't see color. You know what I'm saying? They're very distinct lines of color in our culture. You can tell people get treated differently when it comes to sentencing, education. Look at our neighborhoods, look at our congregations. We keep acting like there's not a difference, but as long as we ignore it, the enemy just will keep winning and keep us separated. I don't understand. I know some Christians will confuse my vision, claim I'm playing cards with my race, but I will forgive them, cause it's not a game, and I'm not speaking fiction. I've been thrown on the ground by police when I was innocent, and had guns in my face when I was quiet, not resistant, and been asked if you belong here in the house that I had built. So if you can't relate to the pain, just be quiet while I vent some. Not saying that it's all bad, but hate groups still exist. So why am I questioned by these bloggers and my Christian kinfolk, acting like skinheads in the clan aren't dangerous people who don't protest and profess to want me dead before the end? So as long as they organize it, I'ma ride against the evil and raise the unification, cause Satan divides the nations by race, creed, and color. He wins if we don't face it, so face it. We have a country divided by color lines. Just look at your Sunday service and prove to me that I'm lying. Come on. It's reality. We live in different neighborhoods. We travel different places. So there's little communities of color all over the country. You know what I'm saying? But when something happens to a minority, to a different group, we always try to act like those things don't happen every day. Just because you don't see it on TV don't mean it's real, because it's real to us.
It's about that white power. They screaming with no words. It's about that white powder. They put that on our curbs. If we say black power, our intentions are absurd. We covered in black powder when that coffin's in the dirt. I could be that stereotype that you think of me. Wrap a black bandana around my face, I'm facing robberies. About to face a diamond cause I'm black. It's crack up in my jeans, clapping at these cats. In contrast to that, this is me. Already a statistic cause I grew up with my mother. They gon' make me a statistic trying to put me undercover. You gon' make me a statistic cause you know that Jesus love us. But because we different, seem like you don't reach out to the brothers. Never knew equality since slavery in the South. Even Martin Luther King got popped for what he talked about. 20 years for
warning shots if someone gets up in my house. New perception is the mother that consists up in your mouth. You don't try to understand us, we can't be on one accord. Y'all ain't dying daily like when Christians really love the Lord. You don't have to fear for your life when the cops is at your door. Hit the floor, empty your pockets, fresh out the corner store. They say all lives matter, but the blacks die first. Don't subtract my verse, your vision ain't that diverse. Cause see, if you got a black kid sitting next to a white kid, mugging a white cop, who gets the black guy first? Something in my pocket says he hits the black guy first. They gon' try to shut me up, let me get my black tie first. And if these my last hours, don't relax on my verse. On face, throw black flowers out the back of my hearse. Seem like everybody mad at us, got the police harassing us. Why your pastor be asking us why we talk about half this stuff? Cause it's true, homie, don't put the shoe on if it wasn't true. But if it fits, tie up or not, then grab the other shoe and kick rocks until you flip-flop and make a substitute. Spit 6 shots at hate, then show them what love will do. Love is blind, 66 clips go in this gun of mine. Busting at everything, trying to take you to the other side. Love is kind, look out for my brother till I'm done with mine. Whether black, white, Hispanic, or any other kind. Love is like a drug, you hating, sniff on these color lines. I say love is love, can you love me like you colorblind?
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
In My Humble Opinion, 101 Jams, we're back at it. And this is the People Station, your home for today's and classics, hip-hop, and R&B. And without further ado, we have a young lady with us right now to share her accounts of yesterday and just our city in general, because she is very much involved in the community, and it gives me great pleasure to say that and see the good work that she's doing, and great pleasure to introduce to the In My Humble Opinion family, Miss Tanesha Hudson. How are you, Tanesha?
Hello, how are you guys?
So Tanesha, let's jump right into it. I'll kind of let you start however you want. Of course, we want your firsthand accounts of what you experienced yesterday. But if you want to back up a little bit and lead into that, feel free.
Well, I'll just start off and say that yesterday proved the real reality of Charlottesville. And Charles, just as well as I know, we've been on the NAACP for quite some time. Mm-hmm. We dealt with these issues on numerous occasions, different issues that have came about in Charlottesville way before the statue. I think Charlottesville has finally been exposed for what it really is. As I said yesterday in a press conference that I shared with Vice News, I believe, no matter what corner you stand in this city, the slave master can view you from his house. So you can't even hide from the slave master when you stand in any corner of Charlottesville. I think people want the perception to remain a Southern liberty, a white Confederacy. I think people really look for that in Charlottesville. Because, if we go back in history, let's be real. Charlottesville was over 50% black at one time. Yeah. Black people actually ran this city before they went and gentrified Vinegar Hill. So we've been here. We didn't just come here. We've been here. That's right. And they ran us out. So the accounts of yesterday prove that. It proved that they don't want us here.
So, Tanesha, let me ask you then. So, what do you say about the inference that people are outsiders that are doing these rallies and protests to keep the Confederate monuments? Do you believe that they're all outsiders or mostly outsiders?
The outsiders got to come in from the insiders. So it's people here that still believe and think that the bloodshed that statue represents is nothing wrong with it. But yesterday, the city has to wear the bloodshed that occurred yesterday. Charlottesville got to wear that. It's no other way to look at it.
So how about you put us sort of in your viewpoint yesterday as far as your reasonings for being around and what it was that you saw and what took place?
Well, my first concern yesterday was the fact that the police did nothing to support the people that were counter-protesting. The police acted as a shield for everybody that represented the alt-right, Unite the Right, neo-Nazis, or whatever group you want to consider them. I don't even know what to call them, white supremacists. The police shielded them. So initially, in the beginning, before it even became anything of an issue, I went to the police officers to ask the police officers, well, why are you guys not protecting the people? Because you knew other people and other groups had filed permits to actually be down here to counter-protest. Why are you guys not protecting the people. And the answer that was given to me was, we'll do that if it comes to that. We'll handle that when it comes to that. Well, it came to that, and they failed the people. So as the Nazis were walking through, they were lowering their flags so the flags could smack you in the face, or the poles could bust you in the head. They were throwing water bottles. And then as the Antifa group came along, and we all know who the Antifa people are. We all know what they stand for. They gonna bite back because they believe by any means necessary. They not gonna do it first, but if you do it to them, they gonna surely protect themselves. And that's what it eventually led to. These neo-Nazis were shooting paint guns. You had people that had been busted in the head from paint guns, water bottles, hit with flagpole sticks. I mean, I don't know what other way. I have so much video footage of me even speaking to the police like, oh, y'all just chilling, eating hot dogs, drinking water, getting time and a half, and not protecting the soul. Right. So if the duty of the police was to serve and protect the people, meaning people as a whole, it didn't matter which side of the fight you stood on, you still stand as people. They only protected one side. Yeah,
and now I was pleasantly surprised to hear the term being used, terrorist. And I say pleasantly surprised because too many times that word terrorist gets acquainted to a certain religion or people who look a certain way. You know, but I'm glad that people are calling it what it is. But I'm curious, have you received any feedback from that question of how did these people get permits and how did they get this protection in the first place? Because I know the NAACP was one of the groups that asked that question. I know a lot of people in the community asked that because to me, and I just want your opinion, like they are hate groups. Like their history has shown violence. So for them to say they can lawfully and peacefully protest, that part, like I don't get how that was even approved. Have you been a part of that discussion?
So the law says you can lawfully it doesn't matter if your protest turns violent or not. The law, the Constitution. See, this is where we get into the law being able to bend for certain folks and not bend for others. That's why we have a huge injustice right now when it comes to black people in the law and white privileged people in the law. The law says that you can protest regardless of what. Doesn't matter. So I'm not upset that they were able to protest. That doesn't bother me. Let them protest. But the same way they could protest is the same way the counter protesters were able to come out and protest.
I watched the events as it unfolded on TV, and what was I would love to be able to talk to an officer or the chief to talk about what was the logic they used as far as how they handled the rally. Because of this, I saw so much footage of people just walking to the area where they were supposed to protest, and they clearly had weapons. They came with the intentions to fight, you know, and I'm viewing this thinking, okay, they are coming with bad intentions. But for every videotape that I saw, I didn't see any law enforcement. And then I wonder, why aren't you taking this? If someone's marching down the street with a PVC pipe, what do you think they're coming for? So let me ask you this. What do you tell anyone at this point that stands against the hatred that happened yesterday? How do we go forward? How do we heal from this? How do we make this, the world, cliche as it sounds, a better place? What's our next step? Is it time for the next step, or do we have to sit in this for a while and figure this mess out before we can move on?
I've been saying this for a long time. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And too many people see wrong and think it's right. And too many people stand for wrong in the wrong times. And then they want to pretend as if they stand for right when things like this occur. See, I think what people saw and the way people are feeling yesterday, that's the passive aggression that we as black people have felt for 400 years. So the bloodshed laying down on Charlottesville right now, that's the same bloodshed your ancestors and my ancestors went through and felt. These are same stories that my grandfather or my father or my stepfather or great uncles and people that's over a certain age, and my grandmothers have sat and told me and explained to me, some I never thought that I would actually visualize and see for myself, but this is the harsh reality of racism. Has it left? No. Who are we to even begin to believe to think that it had left? We've been dealing with it. And I want to get back to you saying these men marching in with guns. I want to give y'all a small visual, and I want you to really close your eyes and think about this. I want you to imagine 50 black men walking with banana clips and shotguns and pipes or bats or flags that said Black Power or Black Panther or Huey P. Newton shirts or Dr. King or Malcolm X by any means necessary quotes. I want you to visualize 50 black men walking with guns, and I want you to think about how that outcome would have been and how much bloodshed would be laying on this city. Right now we looking at 3, but if it was a slew of black folks, we probably would have been looking at hundreds.
Tanesha, got a question for you. Do you think, in your opinion, that the police may have been, for lack of a better word, afraid to engage because they were scared it was going to escalate?
I don't think that they were afraid. I think this is the reality that we have failed to accept as people, that this is what the police do. We've seen it on camera. We see all these cases with no indictments. We see all these cases with a law-abiding citizen is black that's legally allowed to carry a firearm, shot and killed in front of his daughter. So I may be the wrong one to ask that question, because they're definitely not afraid. They're only afraid when they see somebody that look like me and you. That's the only time they're afraid. But as long as it's their own kind, you peacefully get arrested. You peacefully get detained. Nothing happens to you. You're protected. It's like going against the grain.
Yeah. So as far as your accounts from yesterday, is anything else that you want to volunteer to our listening audience that would appreciate that insight from your point of view?
Well, I just hope that more people get involved. You know, I want to thank. It would be selfish of me not to thank everybody that came out yesterday. It doesn't matter your race, creed, color, gender. It doesn't matter. Thank you for coming out. I want to encourage more people to get involved, go to the NAACP, become a member, join EPIC, join Black Lives Matters, join Surge, join any group that you know that stands for this, because as you know, it may hurt some people to accept the fact, but it was more people that wasn't black out there fighting for our Black Lives Mattering than it was black folks fighting for Black Lives Matter. See, we can't straddle the fence. We have to figure out, are we for the good fight? Are we not for the good fight? So if you're for the good fight, you need to put it to work. This is not the time to run and hide. This is the time to come out and say what you mean and say what you feel and do it and follow through with it, because we've been quiet too long.
That's right. Well, Tanesha, I know Aaron has a question. He's just dying to chime in over there. So if you just have a couple more minutes, can we play a quick song and come right back to you?
Yeah.
All right, and then we want to make sure that when we wrap up with you, you let the people know about events that you're involved with today as well as going forward like you just did. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, IMHO 101 Jams. We'll be right back with more from local activist Tanesha Hudson. IMHO 101 Jams, the People Station. And we are sitting here with Tanesha Hudson. And before we let her go, I know Aaron wanted to chime in. We want to make sure that you all know that you can please send your questions and comments to IMHO 101 Jams on Facebook and other social media, as well as the station lines are open, 434-422-9101. I get that right, Max?
That's right.
I got it. All right. All right, Aaron.
Yes, Ms. Hudson, I appreciate talking to you today. You mentioned something earlier, and I thought it was pretty important about, this town, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you've been a long-time resident. A lot of people know this town for Thomas Jefferson and Monticello. And I wanted to ask you, even just based upon the events that happened yesterday, Mr. Jefferson, he wasn't a great man at all, in reference to some of the things and how he treated black people. Can you just talk about, from your own personal experience or people that you know, how being in this area and having that constant shadow of that institution affects the non-white and black people that live in this community, because I didn't really understand it until I visited there about how it made me feel, and watching people go there and drink and have wine and thinking that this is some place where wonderful things were happening, where it's apparent that wasn't the case. Can you talk about that institution there and its effect on the black community here in Charlottesville?
Well, I just think it's kept the black community quiet. I mean, you know, you dealing with people that's lived through Jim Crow. You dealing with people that's, like, for instance, my grandmother is almost 80, and I asked her, well, Granny, why you don't go do none of these meetings? And she said, I've been living this long and ain't nothing changed. It ain't gonna change. They live with the idea that it's not going to change. So we have a wave of black people. It's a division. We have a division of black folks because we have the black folks that have been through it, that's never seen the change. And then you have the new era, like myself, that I ain't got to believe that it's going to change, but I'm going to fight till it change, because I got kids living behind me, and I'm going to make sure that it's okay for my kids. So it's a division. So it all depends on what you take from it. So instead of me listening to the stories and not doing nothing about it, I listen to the stories and I get out here and I speak my 2 cents. And it doesn't matter if it puts a red beam on my head or not. Because if I'm dying for something that I believe in to protect mine, then I feel like I'm doing the right thing. This is not a time to be a coward and sit back and accept what's been happening. Because as I said, and just as you just asked me, this is the rhetoric of Charlottesville. This is the vision of Charlottesville. This is what has been in Charlottesville. And it's time for Charlottesville to change. Because, see, we've been here, as I said earlier. We not new to Charlottesville. At one point, it was more of us than it was white folks. But then they gentrified and they took stuff away from us. So it's time that we stop being quiet. You can't keep taking stuff from us. And until we bond together as people, they're going to continue to do it, but it's on us to come together to fight so that they can stop doing it.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Thank you, Tanesha, for joining us. We appreciate you. We know you're off to another event. Did you want to tell us about that real quick?
Yeah, Nakaya Walker, who is our independent city council running mate, is having a meet and greet today at Forest Hill Park. Also, it's the BCBA championship game today. Starts at 5 o'clock. So there's a lot of positive events going on. Yesterday, few people, 89 Till, Jamar, Robert Gray, Will, and Nicholas Fagans gave away school supplies and had a nice event down Tonsler Park. So, you know, we have some black people in the community doing some great things. They did it yesterday. They're going to do it today. So we just encourage y'all, again, as I said earlier, get involved. Start, hit the ground running and start putting some work in.
All right. Thanks again. You're tuned in to In My Humble Opinion. Listen, stay with us, because right after the break, we're coming back with Ibram X. Kendi's family here at In My Humble Opinion. And he actually wrote a book about ending racism. Apparently, we need to pass out some copies here in Charlottesville. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams. You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
And we're back, family. Your friend on the radio, Maxilia Robinson, joined by Charles Lewis, Razor, Aaron Simmons in the studio. Our guest for this segment is Professor Ibram X. Kendi. He's a professor at American University, and he's also an author, wrote several pieces for the Washington Post and the like. Mr. Kendi, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you.
Oh, it's an honor to be on the show.
Yes. So I think I'll start this out and ask you, you've seen what's happened on the streets in Charlottesville. I'm sure you've also seen what the president had to say about what's happened here in Charlottesville. So I'll begin by asking you whether or not his comments were sufficient. How are you feeling about what our president had to say, how he addressed us?
Well, of course, from my perspective, his comments were in no way sufficient. I think it's quite obvious that he feels some sort of allegiance to the people who brought violence to Charlottesville, and so therefore does not want to challenge them and disavow them very directly and concretely in the ways he is attacking North Korea. And I think that really shows a lot about his priorities, his interests, and whose lives matter to him.
Okay.
And Dr. Kendi, so as we mentioned, you're a contributor to the Washington Post, and you had a very, very well-written and insightful article this weekend that you wrote after yesterday's events. Can you tell our listeners about that article and summarize that for us?
Sure. So, one of the aspects of what happened in Charlottesville was, of course, this is the city that many people regard as the city that Jefferson built, Thomas Jefferson built. Of course, he was the founder of University of Virginia. His likeness is everywhere around the city. His plantation was right outside of the city. I mean, I don't have to tell this to anyone. And so I wanted to sort of write about how Jefferson's legacy was largely embodied in this clash that we witnessed and Charlottesville had experienced the last few days. This clash between bigotry and equality. And you have a situation in which both those who have strove for freedom against oppression have drawn inspiration from Jefferson, and those who have sought to oppress people or deny people the ability to be free have also drawn inspiration from Jefferson.
All right. Another question for you. As you mentioned, our president hasn't spoken directly to what's happening. There's a lot of people that are discussing the unrest here in Charlottesville who are not talking about it or calling it what it is. Now, what's the danger of us not speaking to it directly?
Well, if you do not describe the people who came to Charlottesville as terrorists, and you therefore do not react, you don't use the resources and the capabilities of the U.S. To neutralize these groups, then it creates a scenario in which, they're just exercising their free speech and they have the ability to sort of do this. And, things just got out of hand. There were people bad on both sides, as the president stated. And so I think it creates a different type of scenario. But the fact of the matter is that these people were terrorists, and these people have actually engaged in a level of terrorism that have affected the lives of people of all races at levels, according to some studies, that exceed people who are Islamic. But that's not a discussion that people want to have. We still imagine people who terrorize American lives as people who are Islamic, when in fact the people who are most likely to terrorize American lives were those types of people who came to Charlottesville the last few days.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you because a lot of your work talks about ending racism, and I want to know if a scenario like what played out here is necessary to get to that step. We'll be right back after this.
WVAI Charlottesville Morning Wake Ups with the Rise and Grind Morning Show.
In your props every day, I listen to you.
It's the only way to start your day. Weekday mornings, 6 till 10 on 101.3. You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
At American National University, our faculty make the difference. You can ask Tara, an American National University graduate.
I can reach out to them any given time, any day, and they will be there.
At ANU, our small class sizes make it possible for instructors to give their students a real hands-on experience.
Some of my favorites were medical labs. The instructors gave real examples from their own careers.
American National University has provided career-focused education for more than 130 years. Fall term application deadline is September 1st. You can call the Charlottesville campus at 434-220-7960 or visit an.edu for more information.
101.3 101 Jams is supported by Freebridge Auto. Freebridge has 3 questions. Have a job? Have a couple of bucks? Need a car? If the answer is yes, they can help. Sales, service, and financing are what Freebridge is all about. And after the sale, Freebridge earns its A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Since 1993, their motto has been everybody rides. And you can find out why at Freebridge Auto, 1400 Richmond Road, and at freebridgeauto.com. That's Freebridge Auto.
Everybody ride.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 101 Jams. You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams. You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
That's right, family, and we're back. We're joined by Professor Ibram X. Kendi. And before the break, Professor Kendi, we were speaking about ending racism and what it takes to end it. And you've written several pieces on this. So I'd like to know if what played out here in Charlottesville is necessary to get to that level. And then I'll ask you a 2-part question. Can you leave us with what we need to know to end this? I call it evil, to end this evil in the world, because it's good to point your finger at the problem, but we also need to talk about the solution to the problem.
Absolutely.
Sure, and I think this is the principal reason why I decided to write Stand from the beginning, and I wanted to sort of answer this question. And we have long been taught this idea that the way to end racism is through basically educating and persuading away the racist ideas of people. And I found that what's actually occurred throughout American history is that the racist ideas that even the people held, white supremacists hold, really comes out of racist policies. In other words, people are creating racist policies out of self-interest. So they're enslaving black people because they want to make money. And then they're creating and producing racist ideas to justify that policy. In other words, black people should be enslaved because black people are barbaric. And then they're circulating those ideas, and then people are consuming those ideas and believing those ideas, and then treating black people like they're barbarian. And so I think what that means then is, I think as a society, if we really want to end racist ideas, then we have to focus on racist policies. We have to challenge the racist policies that are actually causing these ideas. And I think what's extremely difficult about what happened in Charlottesville is that the people and the ideas that we saw coming from the lips of many of these people are people who are in power. They're in power in state houses across this country. They're in power in the White House. And so those people who are in power are continuously producing these ideas to justify their policies. And I think those are the policies and those are the people in power that we have to challenge.
Okay. Aaron?
First thing is, I read on your bio that you're from Jamaica, Queens, and I am too. So New York guy, that's fantastic. My question for you is, I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and her work in the D.C. area. And my question is that, after the Civil War, I think you alluded to a little bit of this, is that we saw a huge increase in, I just like to call direct violence towards black people over the last couple of years. We've seen the incident with Dylan Storm Roof, some of the other incidents where there was a young man in New York City that unfortunately he killed another black male with a sword, I believe. She had predicted at one time that these behaviors would not stop just based upon the white genetic collective. First question was, do you believe in that particular theory? And if you don't, do you have a theory on why, for some reason, we're being emboldened with more direct violence from suspected racists?
Sure. And so historically, of course, I'm familiar with Frances Cress Welsing's theories, and of course, coming from the discipline of psychology, I think she's coming at it from a different perspective. As an historian, what I found is that the racist violence typically comes about as a result of black people trying to uplift themselves. And typically when racist ideas do not keep black people down, in other words, when a black person does not say to themselves, I should be in poverty because black people are lazy, and instead a black person says, you know what, there's a problem that black people are in poverty, let me resist this, or let me rise myself out of poverty. And then black people rising in society has typically brought about racist violence. So we're familiar with lynchings. The majority of lynchings, according to studies, were because black people defied Jim Crow, or black people did something as simple as own land or owned a store that was doing successful. And then that brought on violence. And so it wasn't surprising to me, knowing that history, that Barack Obama, ascending into the presidency, and the progress that, of course, that symbolized would bring on all sorts of racist violence.
All right. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you and hope to talk to you soon.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, family, you're tuned in to In My Humble Opinion on 101 Jams, classics in today's hip-hop and R&B, and the home of Cheryl Underwood Radio. And we can't forget the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Listen, don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to bring Dr. Umar Johnson to you and hear what he has to say about what's happening in our town. All right? Be right back.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.